Hi, it's Professor Leonards again, and I want to talk to you about formatting your poem. Some things you want to know. First, most poems will have titles. I know it's true, you'll see some that don't, but I think you should title your poem. That title will be generally centered over the poem itself, which gets me to the next thing. Your poem should not be centered. That just says, I don't know what I'm doing with the format of this poem at all. Do not center your poem. Rather, don't have it all the way over to the left, like you do with prose. Bring it over till it's, 20 spaces in, 15 spaces in or so. And that's where you start every one of your stanzas as a general rule. And then what you do is you'll write your lines of poetry. And they'll be ragged right, which means they'll be rough over here. And then on the other side, they'll be flush left, which is the normal way to do it. Sometimes in poems, you'll see that some of the lines are indented beyond that. So you might have the first line indented at the normal beginning of the poem. The next one goes in 5 spaces or 10 spaces. Why would somebody do that? Well, they do it to line up ideas sometimes. If they're kind of building a layer effect in the poem. So a line could go like this, like this, like this, kind of flowing across. Maybe there's a reason for that. Maybe it's about something moving across, or maybe it's something moving downward. So there's a visual representation of it. Again, that's not necessarily something you want to do when you're first starting to write, but some poets like to play with that. Sometimes you also indent lines so that you have an effect where you have one line and then you have another line. So they're like boom, boom. And then inside that, there's an indent and another indent. And the way that works is it pairs up or triples up or quadruples up lines. So that might be another reason to play with where a line starts and stops in terms of the visual on the page. Now, a poem is single spaced, except between stanzas. So you don't want to be double spacing between lines. That's confusing to readers. Single space, do not center, and allow that poem to have some breath. How long should the lines be? Well, it depends on the type of writer you are, and it depends what you want the lines to do. So let's talk about this a little bit. When I say an end stop line, that's a line that basically stops where sentence stops, or maybe there'd be a semicolon at the end, but it stops. It's got a definite stop in terms of meaning. Usually it's a period, maybe a question mark as well. And that kind of thing is typical. If we do that, we slow down the rhythm of the poem. If we're doing what we call enjambment, which is running ideas down the page and then stopping occasionally with periods, what we get is a whole different effect. So the end stops slow everything down. The enjambment flows down the page more rapidly. If we think about this, we have a lot of potential to start and stop the poem the way we want our reader to experience it. Now, there's one other thing you have to realize, and that's that you have groupings of lines called stanzas, as you probably know. And stanzas, they come in all different varieties, but they're grouped together like a little paragraph. If I'm enjamming, I can enjam through lines to speed up my poem, or I can even enjam through stanzas, meaning there'll be, the white space, and then the meaning continues on into the next stanza. What that does is it laces those stanzas together, and it makes the reading experience very different. It makes it running through it as if it all must be connected. The stanza divides, meaning that it creates this effect where, here's one idea, here's another idea, and it connects those, but it divides the different units. And meanwhile, the enjambment will connect it if it's going across it. If we have end stopping, and then we have end stopped lines, then we have new stanza and more end stop lines beneath that, really the effect seems like it's here's a complete element, here's a complete element, here's a complete element. And if you think about this, a poem doesn't have to do one or the other, it can do both. So we can go slow, 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 start again, Go a little slower. Now in a jam line, pick up the pace. Oh my goodness, we're going into the next stanza and it's in jammed and we're picking up some pace and I'm going to slow, slow, slow so that you can create your rhythm. Some poems want to fall down the page like a waterfall, and that's awesome. And then some poems like to meander down the page using some slower enjambment like a river that's just kind of, got a lazy current going, really beautiful. And then some poems like to, they kind of like to be like roads. Got to get to the end, you make a turn, you come back, stop signs, leisurely little tour. I know I left the water back there, but okay, my images are a little, are not similar, but you get the idea. So your job is to figure out what your poem wants to do, and you play with that. At first you might not know, but I'm kind of a fan of the Bauhaus school of poetry. They're not known for poetry, but the idea is that, form fits function. So if I want my poem to be quick, chances are it's going to be probably much more vertical line, much more enjambed, and also a very thin poem. If I want it slower poem, typically it's going to be more horizontal, probably have some more end stops in it, a lot more end stops. Let's talk about another thing that's really cool to do. In your lines of poetry, you can stop the poem in the middle of the line. And the way that you do this really is you do it by enjamming a line and then putting a period or a semicolon in the middle of your line. What that does is literally breaks the rhythm there for a second, breaks the flow, and then you start back up. It's a nice technique, so I recommend that as well. So anyway, to recap, your poem can come in many different shapes and sizes. That's not the point of organizing your poem. You definitely want a title. You never want to center unless there's some cheesy, gimmicky reason for centering. Or maybe, there is a real reason. But please try not to center. And then after that, you want to use your line breaks to determine the flow of the poem. Slow it down, start it up, slow it down, start it up. And the stanzas will add to that. Anyway, my arm's getting tired holding this phone away from myself. So I'm going to call it a day on this and hope you enjoy the brief explanation. See you soon in class. Bye-bye.